The mystery of Marilyn Monroe's death, theories and unanswered questions. Her name was Norma Jean Mortensen, but the world knew her as Marilyn Monroe, a sex symbol, a cultural icon, and perhaps a broken woman hidden behind platinum curls and a red-lipped smile. On the morning of August 5th, 1962, Marilyn was found dead in her bedroom in Brentwood, Los Angeles. The circumstances were shocking. Naked, face down, surrounded by empty pill bottles, no suicide note, no witnesses, and a timeline full of holes immediately sparked suspicion. The official report called it an overdose, a tragic, lonely end for the most famous woman in the world. But the more you look at the details, the more disturbing the story becomes. For many, this wasn't a suicide. This was a cover-up. Act 1, The Last Night, Echoes of Anger. The August evening of 1962, in Brentwood, Los Angeles, should have been quiet and sultry, like many others. But inside Marilyn Monroe's luxurious home at 12305 5th Helena Drive, the atmosphere was far from peaceful. It was here, in this seemingly tranquil corner, that events unfolded, setting the prologue for one of the most enigmatic and debated deaths of the 20th century. 7:30 p.m., August 4th, 1962. Marilyn's housekeeper, Eunice Murray, who had long been one of the closest people to the actress, later gave testimony that cast the first shadow of doubt on the official narrative. She claimed to have heard Marilyn talking on the phone, her voice filled with fury. This wasn't just an emotional outburst typical of Monroe's sensitive nature. It was a cry full of threat and desperation. "Tell him I'll go public! I'll tell everything I know." These words, allegedly spoken by Marilyn, echoed in the quiet house. To whom were these angry words addressed? And what exactly was Marilyn threatening to reveal? One popular theory suggests the person on the other end was Peter Lawford, an actor, a member of Frank Sinatra's famous Rat Pack, and more importantly, a brother-in-law to the Kennedy family. Lawford was a link between Marilyn and the political elite, often arranging their secret meetings. If Marilyn truly screamed these words at him, it immediately links her final conversation to powerful circles. What exactly did she want to go public with? Was it personal details of her affairs with John and Robert Kennedy, which could destroy their political careers? Or something more, beyond personal relationships? Eunice Murray also claimed that Marilyn spoke with her psychiatrist, Dr. Ralph Greenson. Dr. Greenson was a key figure in Marilyn's life in her later years, a confidant who presumably knew many of her secrets and her emotional state. Why would she need to call him so late? And what might they have discussed? Was it an attempt to find support, or perhaps a confession of sorts? Some theories suggest that Greenson might have been more than just a psychiatrist, possibly part of an operation to manage Marilyn. But besides Lawford and Greenson, an unknown man was also mentioned. Who could this be? The most ominous and frequently discussed theory points to Robert F. Kennedy, then the Attorney General of the United States. This assumption is fueled not only by rumors of his intense affair with Marilyn after John F. Kennedy distanced himself, but also by the subsequent events of that night. If it was Robert Kennedy, the content of their conversation could have been critically important. Was this Marilyn's last, desperate attempt to blackmail him, threatening to reveal everything she knew? Or was it Kennedy's attempt to settle the situation before it spiraled out of control? By 10 o'clock p.m., Marilyn's phone line went dead. This event itself adds to the mystery. Was the connection deliberately cut? By whom? Or was it merely a coincidence? In the context of the tragic events that followed, it takes on a sinister tone, suggesting that Marilyn might have been cut off from the outside world, deprived of the ability to continue her threats or seek help. This last evening, filled with anger, desperation, and mysterious calls, became the starting point for endless speculation. What exactly happened behind the closed doors of Marilyn's house during those hours? What words were exchanged? What threats were uttered? And what did they lead to? This is just the beginning of a story that still lacks a definitive answer. Act 2. Kennedys, Sex and Secrets, Power, Obsession, And the Red Diary, the story of Marilyn Monroe and the Kennedy brothers, isn't just a Hollywood myth. It's a tangle of facts, half-truths, and persistent rumors that continues to spark fierce debate. For a long time, Marilyn's connections to John F. Kennedy, then the U.S. president, remained in the shadows, shrouded in secrecy. However, today, thanks to declassified documents, personal testimonies, and even FBI reports, it's clear their contacts went beyond mere acquaintance. The White House, a symbol of strict morality and political respectability, became the stage for secret meetings with America's most desired woman. But the intrigue doesn't stop there. When John F. Kennedy, perhaps under political pressure or out of fear of scandal, began to distance himself from Marilyn, her attention, according to numerous accounts, shifted to his brother, Robert Kennedy, who held the influential position of Attorney General. This change of partners did not bring Marilyn peace. On the contrary, she, as her close friends and assistants claim, became obsessed. Imagine the most famous woman in the world, an icon of glamour and sexuality, suddenly transforms into a woman desperately seeking attention and, perhaps, revenge. She reportedly called them both, showed up at events where the Kennedy brothers might be, and, most disturbingly, threatened to publicly reveal details of her affairs. Such a threat, in the midst of the Cold War, when the reputation of the president and his family was paramount, could have catastrophic consequences. A scandal of this magnitude could not only undermine the brothers' political careers, but also pose a national security threat, weakening the U.S. position on the international stage. This is where the story takes a truly dark turn. At the heart of many conspiracy theories surrounding Marilyn Monroe's death is a mysterious Red Diary. According to declassified FBI documents and insider accounts, Marilyn kept this diary, in which, it is claimed, she recorded not just personal experiences, but also details of her conversations with John and Robert Kennedy. What could the president and his brother have discussed with a Hollywood star? Theories range from mundane gossip to shocking revelations. Cuba. Discussions about plans related to the Cuban Missile Crisis or the Bay of Pigs operation. The Mafia. Alleged Kennedy ties to organized crime, which, rumors suggest, helped John come to power and later became a problem. Nuclear weapons. Information about strategic plans or negotiations that could have been state secrets. Even UFOs. While it sounds fantastic, some theories claim Marilyn might have had access to classified information about extraterrestrial contacts or government programs related to them. She was a liability, one former intelligence officer allegedly said years later, summarizing this disturbing situation. A walking national security risk with lipstick. This statement, if true, perfectly illustrates how Marilyn, once a symbol of the American dream, could become a source of uncontrollable risk for the most powerful people in the country. Her emotional instability, reliance on medication, and perhaps naivete regarding the consequences of her actions made her particularly dangerous in the eyes of those who had much to lose. The question arises, how seriously were her threats taken? Was it just the hysteria of a desperate woman, or did she truly possess information capable of shaking the foundations of American politics? And if so, what could those facing exposure have done? The answers to these questions form a sinister backdrop to the events of that fateful night, when, as many believe, Marilyn Monroe's fate was sealed. Her connection to the Kennedys, her obsession, and the alleged Red Diary. All of this, according to conspiracy theorists, became her death sentence. Act 3. The cleanup operation. Oddities and delays. If the preceding events are shrouded in a fog of speculation, the morning of August 5, 1962, brought even more questions that the official version has never been able to satisfactorily explain. It is here, according to proponents of the conspiracy theory, that the most active phase of the cleanup operation begins. An attempt to conceal or distort the truth about Marilyn Monroe's final hours. Robert Kennedy's presence in Los Angeles. This is one of the most controversial points. Officially, Robert Kennedy was far from Los Angeles that weekend. However, Numerous of Marilyn's neighbors in Brentwood later claimed to have seen him near the actress's home. Furthermore, some reported seeing Kennedy accompanied by LAPD officers. If this is true, why did officials so persistently deny his presence? His appearance that fateful evening or early morning could serve as powerful circumstantial evidence of his involvement in the events preceding Marilyn's death. Fred Otash's recording. Another potentially explosive element is an audio recording allegedly made by private detective Fred Otash. Otash, a highly controversial figure with connections in various circles, supposedly secretly recorded a violent argument between Bobby Kennedy and Marilyn Monroe just hours before her death. Imagine the Attorney General's voice, full of rage and the desperate cries of the movie star. If such a recording truly exists and its content confirms the version of a conflict, it could completely overturn the understanding of Marilyn's last moments. Why was this recording never presented as evidence? Events after the body was found. This is where the timeline truly becomes fractured. Calling Dr. Greenson. Instead of immediately calling emergency services or the police, housekeeper Eunice Murray, by her own account, first contacted Dr. Ralph Greenson. Why? If it was an urgent medical emergency, why not an ambulance? The housekeeper's mysterious phone calls. Instead of immediately calling the police or medics, Eunice Murray allegedly made several mysterious phone calls. Whom did she call? The delay in official reporting. Finally, the most glaring fact. Marilyn Monroe's death was officially reported to the police only several hours after her presumed death at 3:30 a.m. Why such a delay? What happened during those hours? Conspiracy theorists claim this time was used for a cleanup of the crime scene, removing any incriminating evidence and creating the appearance of a suicide. The timeline truly is fractured. And, as you rightly emphasized, that's the point. Too many unexplained pauses, too many actions that don't fit standard protocol when a body is discovered. All of this creates the impression that events didn't unfold naturally, but were orchestrated by someone. The goal, according to this theory, was singular. This wasn't just a death, this was a silencing. Acti 4. Autopsy. Orchestrated confusion. A body that spoke, but was not heard. If the actions following the discovery of Marilyn Monroe's body raise questions, the official autopsy, performed by Dr. Thomas Noguchi in the eyes of many, turned those questions into a cry for a hidden truth. Noguchi, later known as the coroner to the stars, was undoubtedly a professional, but even his report, which should have been impartial, contained a series of red flags that could not be ignored. Massive levels of Nembutal, but no residue in her stomach. This is perhaps the biggest and most disturbing anomaly. Extremely high concentrations of Nembutal, a potent barbiturate capable of causing a fatal overdose, were found in Marilyn Monroe's blood. However, strikingly, no pill residue, capsules, or even dye traces from them were found in her stomach. If she had swallowed such a large quantity of pills as claimed, their traces should have been present in her gastrointestinal tract. This fact casts doubt on the official version of oral pill ingestion. How, then, could such massive doses have entered her system? Injection theory. One common hypothesis suggests that the Nembutal could have been administered to Marilyn via injection, possibly while she was unconscious. This would explain the absence of traces in the stomach. However, Noguchi also noted a lack of fresh needle marks on her body. Enema theory. An even more shocking and debated theory is the administration of the drug via enema. This is an extremely fast-acting delivery method that would also leave no traces in the stomach and likely no external marks on the skin. Given the nature of the substances and their rapid effect, such a version sounds ominous. More suspicious circumstances, the disappearance of the red diary. The fact that Marilyn's diary, about which there were so many rumors, was never found after her death, is a cornerstone of the conspiracy theories. If it existed and contained incriminating information, its disappearance directly points to the deliberate removal of evidence. Organs not preserved for toxicology. Another egregious violation of protocol. Marilyn's organs were not preserved for further toxicological analysis. This is standard procedure in suspicious death investigations, especially when an overdose is suspected. The absence of this step would deprive investigators of the opportunity to conduct an independent expert examination or confirm the autopsy results. Cleanup of the crime scene. And finally, the scene, which should have been a place for meticulous evidence collection, was reportedly cleaned up. Her bed was made, some items moved. Why would the police, who presumably arrived at the scene, allow a potential crime scene to be tidied up before launching an investigation? Because someone told them to. This is how conspiracy theorists answer this question. It's assumed that the police were not acting independently, but under pressure from above. All of this, the oddities in the autopsy report, the absence of vital evidence, and the violation of protocol at the crime scene, suggests that the official version may have been incomplete or even deliberately manipulated. Marilyn's body could have told much more than what was recorded in official documents, but perhaps its voice was silenced. Act 5. Who had the motive? A web of power, fear, and secrets. If Marilyn Monroe's death wasn't a simple suicide, but the result of someone's intervention, the inevitable question arises: who benefited from it? In this tangled web of intrigue and rumors, the most powerful figures of the American elite are implicated, whose motives, according to proponents of conspiracy theories, were compelling enough to resort to such extreme measures. Robert Kennedy, to protect his family and political career. His alleged affair with Marilyn put him in an extremely vulnerable position. Marilyn's threat to go public could have destroyed not only his brother the president's reputation, but also his own. JFK, the president in the shadow of the Cold War. Any scandal related to his personal life could have been used by America's enemies to undermine his authority and weaken the country. Marilyn, with her fame and, as claimed, possession of compromising information, was a ticking time bomb. FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover, a thirst for control and blackmail material. His secret dossiers contained information that gave him unprecedented power. Rumors of Marilyn's affairs with the Kennedy brothers, as well as the possible contents of her Red Diary, presented Hoover with an ideal opportunity to gain leverage over the Kennedy family, CIA and Mafia, crossroads of hidden wars. Rumors circulated that Marilyn might have been unwittingly drawn into complex relationships between the CIA, the Mafia, and the political elite. If Marilyn truly discussed topics like Cuba or Mafia ties with the Kennedys, she could have become not just a walking national security threat, but a dangerous witness. Some theories suggest Marilyn might have been used as bait or a pawn in a larger game, or simply became an accidental casualty of an information cleanup. In all these versions, one motive remains constant. She knew too much, and she threatened to speak. In a world where information is power, and state secrets could cost not only political careers, but lives, such a threat was perceived as deadly. The question is only who gave the order and who carried it out. This web of motives, intertwined with power, fear, and deeply buried secrets, is at the core of the Marilyn Monroe case, transforming it from a tragedy into one of the most enduring mysteries of American history. Final act. The theory they don't want you to believe. The final curtain. We've navigated a labyrinth of questions, inconsistencies, and possible motives surrounding Marilyn Monroe's death. Now it's time to weave these disparate threads into a single, chilling hypothesis. One that has been whispered in corridors, discussed in books and documentaries for years, yet never officially confirmed. This is not just a conspiracy theory. For many, it's the only explanation that logically connects all the inexplicable anomalies. Cold calculation or tragic accident? Here's the chilling version of events, pieced together from fragments by investigative journalists, former intelligence agents, and even retired LAPD officers who, perhaps, saw more than they were allowed to say. 1. Robert Kennedy's visit that night. The central element of this theory is Robert Kennedy's direct visit to Marilyn Monroe on the night of her death. It suggested that the purpose of this visit wasn't reconciliation or farewell, but something far more important and dangerous: retrieving the Red Diary. This diary, filled with potentially explosive information about state secrets and personal connections, posed an absolute threat to the Kennedys and the entire administration. 2. An argument erupted. The meeting, according to this theory, did not go smoothly. A heated argument likely broke out between Marilyn and Bobby Kennedy. Marilyn, emotionally unstable and possibly under the influence of alcohol or medication, might have become uncontrollable. She could have reiterated her threats to tell everything, perhaps even attempted to blackmail him or cause a scene during the encounter. Tensions escalated to their limit. 3. Sedation, accidental or intentional. In the heat of the conflict, or perhaps with the goal of calming Marilyn and retrieving the diary, she may have been administered powerful sedatives, the very Nembutal found in her blood. Was this done simply to incapacitate her, allowing for the unobstructed retrieval of the diary? Or was the dose too large, intentionally or accidentally, leading to a fatal outcome? The absence of swallowed pill residue and injection marks, apart from hidden locations or methods like enemas, only strengthens this grim hypothesis. She was silenced. That's what this theory claims. 4. The cleanup began. When it became clear that Marilyn was not regaining consciousness, or that she was already dead, a panicked but methodical cover-up operation began. This stage involved Eunice Murray's mysterious calls, as she likely received instructions from someone above. The goal was clear. Marilyn's death needed to be presented as a suicide, and all evidence pointing to the involvement of the Kennedy family or other powerful forces had to be eliminated. 5. LAPD ordered to delay reporting. The Los Angeles Police Department, according to this theory, was not acting independently. It suggested that they received an order from above to delay the official reporting of the death. This order could have come from the highest echelons of power, perhaps through influential figures in local administration or even directly from Washington. The several-hour delay provided ample time for a cleanup of the crime scene, making the bed, moving items, possibly destroying the Red Diary, and any other incriminating evidence. 6. Dr. Greenson. Under pressure, Dr. Ralph Greenson, who arrived at the scene before the police, was also, according to this theory, under pressure from higher authorities. It was his conclusion that Marilyn died of probable suicide that became official. Could he have been coerced into this conclusion? Or was the situation presented to him in a way that made it the best outcome for everyone involved? In circumstances where powerful figures desired a specific outcome, a doctor could face immense pressure that might influence their professional judgment. Everything was controlled: the story, the scene, the silence. This phrase summarizes the essence of the theory. Every step, every action after Marilyn's death, from the delay in calling the police to the oddities in the autopsy report, is viewed not as a coincidence or mistake, but as part of a carefully planned and executed cover-up operation. The legacy. A victim of power. Marilyn Monroe, the dazzling star of Hollywood, was not just a victim of fame, depression, or addiction, as the official version claimed. According to this theory, she became a victim of power. A victim of men who promised to love her, but feared her truth. A victim of agencies that saw her as a risk, not a person. A victim of a system that silenced her before she could speak. Her death remains one of the most enduring and sinister unsolved mysteries. It continues to fascinate, not because it's just another Hollywood tragedy, but because it touches upon fundamental questions of power, justice, and the hidden mechanisms that may operate behind the scene. Now it's your turn. What do you believe happened to Marilyn Monroe? Was it suicide, as the official report states? Or was she murdered to protect America's most powerful family? Share your theory below. Let the world see that the truth still matters.